cost of the long-term assets, yeah, or power plant and equipment, yeah, or PPE. Yeah? So the cost of the asset, the long-term asset, even the short-term asset, is not only the purchase price itself, right? Remember, there are other costs that are incurred to bring the asset into our company, and it can be readily used. All those costs involved will be part of the cost of the assets. Yeah? So talking about the land, talking about the buildings, talking about the equipment, machineries. Yeah? So the cost is not the purchase price itself. Even the legal costs incurred, yeah, to pay the attorneys, the tax, yeah, all those will be part of the cost of the asset. Yeah. Okay, and then we talk about self-constructed assets. Yeah. Previously, we focused on the purchase asset, the assets that we bought and ready to be used. Yeah. Now, what about the self-constructed assets? I think I briefly explained already that the costs include the materials and direct labors as well as overhead. But overhead, there are different opinions, whereby the first opinion is to assign no fixed overhead, and the second is assign a portion of all overhead to the construction process. Yeah? Okay, and the companies mostly use the second method because it's more representative, yeah, rather than to forget all the overhead. That means we have to include certain part of the overhead. What are the examples of overhead costs? Anyone? Before we enter into this interest cost, what's the example of overhead? Are you taking cost accounting or you have taken it? Or not yet? You have taken it, right? I think.
Yes,
You do?
please.
Yeah, okay. What is overhead? What's the example of overhead? Sudah. Okay, what is the material cost? Going back. What is materials cost? What comprise the materials? Let's say for building. What are the materials? They are? Bangun rumah, apa bahannya?
Semen.
Yes, cement, the bricks, the concretes, yes. The concretes, the bricks, batu bata, the concretes, the metals, aluminium, whatever that is used, that is materials. Direct labors are the labor costs that work directly for building, yeah, who construct the building. Now, overhead is the indirect cost, like electricity involved, the utilities, yeah. So those costs, people argue that the electricity is there despite that we don't construct the building, yeah. So that's why the first opinion believe that we shouldn't assign any fixed overhead, yeah. Because like electricity, even though you don't construct anything, it's there already, okay. But some opinion, which is mostly used, is you should assign a portion of overhead that is related to the construction process. Yeah? Okay. Okay, now we go to so we talk about what component of cost, yeah, for the asset that is self-constructed. Just now the materials, and then the labor cost, the direct labor cost, and then the overhead, yeah, a portion of overhead. No, let's talk about interest cost. Yeah? What about the interest cost that is incurred during the construction process? Yeah? Some opinions argue that we shouldn't capitalize any interest during construction. Yeah, instead, for the first opinion, all interest costs will be expense. Yeah, so is transferred into income statement fully as an interest expense. Yeah. Another extreme opinion is we capitalize all interest costs, yeah, to the asset. Means if there is interest cost, then we debit the asset itself, yeah, the self-constructed asset. Yeah? Okay, DIFRS takes in the middle stance, yeah, whereby it urged to capitalize the actual interest costs incurred during the construction. So we have to calculate what is the actual interest cost that is related to the construction. Okay, when we want to capitalize the interest costs for constructing the building, we need to consider three aspects. Yeah? The first is what assets qualify. Yeah? What assets qualify for us to capitalize the interest cost. Yeah? And then the capitalization period. Yeah? How long? Yeah? And thirdly is the amount to capitalize. How much that we can capitalize from the overall interest cost. Yeah? Because just now IFRS only requires to capitalize the actual interest cost that is related to the construction process. Okay, first aspect, the qualifying assets. Only for the assets that require a substantial period of time to get them ready for their intended use or sale. Yeah. So the asset could be for the purpose of our own use, yeah, we use ourselves, or it could be for the purpose of sales, but it must require a substantial, a long period of time to get them ready. Means it goes through a long process of construction. Yeah. If it is just like, 2 months is already done, then it is not qualified. Yeah, it must be for a long term. Yeah. Okay. Now, capitalization period. When do we recognize? When can the cost can be recognized? Is when the expenditure for the assets are being incurred. Yeah. So let's say we construct the building. The actual expenditure for the asset is incurred starting from June of this year. Yeah. So only from June can be recognized for the purpose of capitalization of the interest cost. Yeah. Even though the project has started, let's say from January, but there is no any expenditure has been incurred from January, so we won't capitalize from January. We have to start from where the expenditure for the assets is being incurred. Okay, what does it mean expenditure? It could be the purchase of the materials, the payment for the laborers, yeah? Or other expenses incurred for the purpose of constructing the building. Yeah. And then it also requires that activities for making the asset ready for use or sale are in progress. Yeah. So there is a process then. Then only we can recognize the capitalization. Yeah. Let's say the project has been abandoned, yeah, has been stopped, yeah, and it's never been developed anymore. So it is not allowed to capitalize during that period because there is no process then. Yeah, it stopped already. Yeah, and the interest costs are being incurred. Yeah, if there is no interest cost being incurred, means we borrow some money. Yeah, the company borrow the funding, and the interest cost is being incurred. So only we can capitalize the interest. Yeah? Okay. When the capitalization ends for the interest, the actual interest cost is when the asset is ready for use, yeah? When it has been completed. Okay, now we move to what amount to capitalize. Okay, remember the first is what asset is qualified. Second, how do we decide the period to capitalize? Now, what is the amount to capitalize? Okay, the IFRS requires the company to capitalize the lesser of. So we compare between the actual interest cost incurred and avoidable interest, whichever is lesser. Yeah? If the actual interest cost is lesser than the avoidable interest, then we would capitalize the actual interest. Yeah? So this is like the principle of lower of cost or net realizable value. You compare the two amounts, which one is the lower, then we take that amount to capitalize. Yeah. Okay, what is avoidable interest? Is the amount of interest during the period of construction whereby the company can actually avoid that interest if it does not do any construction for the asset. Yeah. So if the company is not involved in constructing the asset, it would have been avoiding that interest. Yeah. Dia tidak perlu bayar interest itu kalau tidak ada proyek pembangunan ini. Ya, okay, that is avoidable interest. Any questions so far? I hope you're, yes, Aru?
No.
No, okay. I hope you are very familiar with the term capitalize already, yeah? What's the opposite of capitalize? Is expensive, expense. So either you capitalize or expense. Ya, jadi kita kapitalisasi atau kita jadikan dia beban. Ya. So when we talk about capitalize means we add to the cost of the asset. Yeah? That what it means by capitalizing. Yeah? Okay, now how do we decide the amount to capitalize? First, we need to calculate the weighted average accumulated expenditures. Because remember, we have to find for the period that is the actual expenditure is being incurred. Yeah, that's why we need to calculate the weighted average accumulated expenditures. Yeah. So in calculating this amount, the company must allocate the construction expenditures by the amount of time it has been incurred, yeah, throughout the accounting period. Yeah. We go through the example. Let's say this company decides to build a warehouse estimated to take 17 months to complete starting in 2019. And the company makes the following payments to the contractor in 2019, 240,000 on March 1st, and then 480,000 on July 1st, 360,000 on November 1st. So different amount of expenditures has been incurred at different time. Yeah, so that's why we need to calculate the weighted average accumulated expenditures. Yeah. Okay, let's say for the first amount of expenditure, 240,000, it was 1st March, and we are calculating for December 31st. Yeah, so it's only 10 months. Yeah, the period of capitalization. So 10/12 times the amount of expenditures. So it gives us 200,000. And then July 1st, July to December is only 6 months. So 6/12 times the total amount of expenditure for that date, and we get the weighted average. Yeah? And the same goes to other expenditure, November 1st, so it's only 2 months. Yeah? So we can get the total weighted average accumulated expenditures. What if we have expenditure on December 31st? Do we include that in the calculation of weighted average accumulated expenditures? Any idea? Let's say there is another expenditure 100,000 on December 31st. Do we include that in the calculation?
No, Miss.
No. Why?
Because it's already count at 31st December.
Yeah, because means there is no any period incurred for the current accounting year. Yeah. Okay. So boleh paham so far how do we calculate weighted average accumulated expenditures? Yeah. Okay, and then sorry, let me share again. Wait a moment. Okay, that's now we move to what amount to capitalize. For interest rate, yeah. So for the portion of weighted average accumulated expenditures that is less or equal to any amounts borrowed specifically to finance construction on the asset, we use the interest rate incurred on the specific borrowing. Okay, let's say for example, the company has several borrowings, yeah, from many entities, from this bank, from that bank, yeah. And there is one specific borrowing that is intended for the purpose of financing the construction. Yeah. So let's say just now our weighted average accumulated expenditure is how much just now? 500,000, let's say. And the amounts borrowed to finance the specific debt construction process is 400,000. Okay. So if it is less or equal to the amount borrowed to specifically finance the construction of the asset, we would use the interest rate for that specific borrowing. But let's say, and the excess of 100,000 just now, because our expenditure is 500,000. So the excess 100,000 will use the average capitalization interest rate. Yeah, you will see through the example. I know you get a bit complicated. Yeah. Okay, so for any amount higher than the debt incurred specifically to finance the construction, we will calculate the weighted average of interest rates incurred on all other outstanding debt. Okay, we see the illustration. Okay, let's say for this example, these are all the borrowings of the company. Yeah. So let's say the amount of weighted average expenditure is more than the amount borrowed for specific construction process. So the balance amount we need to times with the capitalization rate we need, or weighted average interest rate. How do we get the weighted average interest rate? We calculate the interest for each borrowing. See, for example, 12% 2 years note, the principal is 600,000. Then we calculate the interest. And each type of borrowing, we calculate the interest until we get the total interest. So the total interest we divide with the total principal amount. And then we will get the weighted average interest rate or capitalization rate. Yeah. So there are two elements. Just now the weighted average expenditure. Now we need to identify the weighted average interest rate. Yeah. Okay. We do the example. Okay. Okay, let's say this company, Shala, contracted Favor, I don't know how to read it, Favor Construction Company to construct a building for 1,400,000 on land costing 100,000, purchased from the contractor. So the contractor is Favor, and included in the first payment. Yeah? So Shala made the following payment to the construction company during 2019. Yeah? So different dates all. Yeah? So what do we do first is we need to calculate the weighted average expenditure, right? Okay, another information is these are the borrowings that Shala incurred. Yeah? So there is one specific borrowing for the purpose of the construction, which is the 15% 3 years note. Yeah? The amount is 750,000. And there are other borrowings. These other borrowings are not intended for the purpose of construction of the building. Understand me? Are you following me? Following?
Yes, ma'am.
Boleh? Ngerti ya? Jadi pinjaman itu ada beberapa. Yang satu memang khusus untuk tujuannya membiayai pembangunan, ya, atau konstruksi, ya. While other debts are not specifically dedicated to finance the project, even though the company may use those other debt as well. Okay. Okay. The first step is we compute the weighted average accumulated expenditures. So this is January 1st. So what is the capitalization period? Is 12 over 12, right? It's the whole year. So it gives us 210,000. March 1st, what is the capitalization period?
10.
10. Okay, May. May 1st, capitalization period is 7 or 8 months, sorry, 8 months. Okay, and then December 31st.
0.
Okay, 0. Good. So we get the weighted average accumulated expenditures of 820,000. Okay, next. This, the specific borrowing, yeah, 15%. Remember, let me go back. The amount of borrowing is 750,000, yeah. So for weighted average expenditure that is equal to the construction, the specific borrowing, we will calculate straightforward with the rate of specific borrowing. Can you get me? Our weighted average is 820. Yeah? Okay, 820. The specific borrowing amount is only 750. Yeah. So to the maximum of the specific borrowing, 750, we will times with the interest rate of that specific borrowing. What about the balance? Because our total is 820. The balance of 70,000, we need to multiply with the weighted average interest rate of other borrowings. Remember, we have another 2 borrowings. Ingat? So other 2 borrowings, we have 10% 5 years notes. Principal is 550,000 and 12% 10-year bonds. Yeah? So it gives interest 127,000. So to get the capitalization rate or average interest rate, we take the total interest here, divide with the total principal. Then we get the average interest rate of 11.04. So the balance just now, we will multiply with the capitalization rate or weighted average interest rate. So that will give us the total of avoidable interest of 120,228. Please indicate to me whether you understand already. Abi, can you understand? Arum? Arum paham? Paham ya? Yeah?
But I have a question. In 15%, it's from the rate from specific construction, right?
This is 10% 5 years note.
15%.
Oh, 15% is the specific borrowing. Jadi pinjaman yang khusus untuk membiayai konstruksi. To the maximum amount, jadi weighted average expenditure which is equal to the specific borrowing, kita pakai interest rate of the specific borrowing. Ya. Yang selebihnya, we use the average interest rate. Average interest rate we calculate from other borrowings. Yeah, we don't include the specific borrowing. Let's say the average expenditure is only 750,000. So we don't need to calculate the average interest rate. Yeah, it already can be calculated by using the specific borrowing interest rate. Yeah. Okay, so first calculate the weighted average expenditures. Identify the amount of weighted average expenditures. And then whatever amount of expenditure that is equal to the specific borrowing. So to calculate the avoidable interest, we just multiply the interest rate of specific borrowing. Yeah. But if the amount is more than the specific borrowing, then we need to identify the average interest rate. Okay. Okay, now we compute the actual interest. Remember the IFRS rule is to take the lower between actual interest and avoidable interest. Just now we calculated the avoidable interest. Remember, avoidable interest is interest yang bisa dihindari kalau tidak kita lakukan pembangunan. Ya, kalau tidak ada konstruksi, sebenarnya tidak perlu membayar interest tersebut. That is avoidable interest. Ya, that's why we calculate just now specific for expenditure incurred on the construction. Ya. Now we calculate the actual interest. Actual interest is the interest amount for all the borrowings. Can you get me? Okay. So we have 3 borrowings. The first one is the specific borrowing, 15% at 750,000. We get the interest of 112. And then we have another 2 borrowings, and then we identify the interest amount. So it gives us the actual, total actual interest is 239,500. So which one is lower? is
55,000.
so the lower is the avoidable interest just now. Remember, we have to compare with the avoidable interest. Avoidable interest is 120,228. Yeah. The actual interest is 239,500. So what amount to capitalize is the lesser amount, which is 120, 228. Yeah. The avoidable interest. Okay. So what does it mean in the journal entry? We will debit the land and this one for the expenditure incurred directly for the construction of the asset just now, January 1st, March 1st, May 1st, December 31st, right? And then we have to capitalize the interest. We capitalize the lesser amount, which is 120,228. What about the difference? The total actual minus the avoidable interest, which is 119,272. It will be expense. So that's why we debit interest expense. And we credit cash 239,500 for the payment of the interest. So kalau ditambah ini dua, the amount that capitalized and the interest expense is actually give us the total interest expense being paid for the period. Okay, so far so good? Hopefully. Okay, so the company would disclose the interest capitalized as part of income statement, yeah, by deducting from the interest expense, or in the notes accompanying the financial statement. Yeah, what is the amount of interest being capitalized? Okay, this is in the notes. Yeah, for example, during 2019, total interest cost was blah 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 blah, of which this amount was capitalized. Yeah? Because we want to give information to the users of financial statement that certain portion of interest has been included in the cost of the building. Okay. Special issues related to interest capitalization. First is expenditures for land. If the land is purchased as a site for a structure, yeah, so the interest costs capitalized during the period of construction are part of the cost of the plant, not the land. Ya. Jadi tanah itu memang dibeli untuk dibangun, so the interest cost is not part of the land. Karena tujuannya tadi untuk dibangun bangunan ya. Jadi interestnya akan menjadi bagian dari bangunan, ya, the cost of interest. Ya. Okay, if the company develops land for lot sales, yeah, it includes any capitalized interest costs as part of the acquisition cost of the developed land. Yeah. So because the land is for the purpose of sales, so that interest cost will be part of the land itself. Yeah. Okay, interest revenue. The general rule, the company should not offset any interest revenue against interest costs unless earned on specific borrowing. Yeah? So we cannot put interest revenue and then minus the interest cost and we get the net interest income. Yeah? Unless it comes from the same source. Yeah? We borrow from that entity, but also we invest, we lend our money to that entity. Yeah. So it comes from the same source, then only we can do the offset on the financial statements. Yeah. Okay, what about the sales transaction of property, plant, and equipment is in the form of exchange. There is no cash transaction. Let's say we buy a building and we exchange it with our land. Tukar menukar aset. In that case, the IFRS requires, how do we decide what's the value of the asset that we buy? Because there is no a cash transaction there. So the IFRS requires what value to recognize is at the fair value of what we give up. What we give up is, let's say we give up our land and we receive the building, or at the fair value of the asset received, whichever is clearer. Let's say the cost of the building, the fair value of the building is more identifiable, the fair value of the building, the asset that we receive. So we would recognize the fair value of that asset at the value of the asset that we receive. Let's say the value of the building, the asset that we are going to receive, is not that clear. But the fair value of asset that we give up or we exchange, the land, for example, is clearer. Then we will take the value of the land. Boleh ngerti? So this is quite subjective. It's not a straightforward matter, even for the accountants in the industry. It involves the subjectivity and it may lead even to the manipulation. What I mean by manipulation might be the management would prefer the fair value that they recognize is higher because it shows the amount of higher asset, and it will be good for the performance of the company. Okay, well, other issues, valuation issues for PPE, for example, cash discounts. Let's say the company gets a discount, the same like you learned previously in your accounting subject, if we pay during the discount period. So the same case for purchase of long-term asset, there may be a cash discount. So there is one opinion that whether we take the discount or we don't take the discount, we need to record the asset at the price less the discount. Because the argument is if we don't take the discount, it's like a loss to the company. So we record at the net amount minus the discount. Okay, and then deferred payment contracts. Okay, let's say assets purchased on long-term credit contracts. We purchase the asset. It's like what angsuran, angsuran, and we'll pay on installments, for the long period. So in that case, the value of the asset need to be calculated at the present value. The calculation based on the table of times value of money. What is the present value of the asset? Okay, then the lump sum purchases. Lump sum purchases, I think we have discussed in part of the topic previously. We allocate the total cost among the various assets on the basis of their relative fair market value. Lump sum purchases, where you buy the whole assets in one price. So you cannot identify what price to allocate for each component of the assets. Let's say we buy a lot of lots of lands. And we cannot identify what's the cost for lot A, lot B, lot C, lot D, because we buy in one price. So we need to allocate the cost among the various assets that we buy based on their relative fair market value. We have done the calculation. I remember this. and then issuance of shares. Yeah. Let's say we purchase the asset in exchange for shares. Ngerti? Or we buy the asset in exchange of shares. Yeah. So the market price of the shares issued is a fair indication of the cost of the property acquired. Kita beli bangunan misalnya, tapi kita tidak bayar cash. Kita hanya kasih saham kepada si penjual tersebut. Ya. So the value of the shares are the value of the asset that we buy. Okay. That is in the case of sales with the issuance of shares. Yeah. Okay, now exchanges of non-monetary assets. We have discussed just now. So we take the value, the clearer value between the asset give up and the asset receive. Yeah? Okay, additional issue in this context is we have to recognize immediately any gain or loss on the exchange when the transaction has commercial substance. What does it mean commercial substance? Is when the transaction will bring us or will affect us to increase our cash flow in the future. Yeah, that's what it means by commercial substance. Or it will increase our productivity. Let's say, for example, we exchange our old trucks with the new trucks, yeah, or with other entities' trucks, yeah, and such exchange transaction will improve significantly our productivity. So that indicates a commercial substance. Okay. So exchange which has commercial substance is where if the future cash flows will change as a result of the transaction, yeah, or the economic position also change, yeah, because just now the productivity being increased, so you will be able to improve your performance. Yeah. Okay, there is accounting guidance for the transaction which has commercial substance and for the transaction that has lacks of commercial substance. Yeah. For the transaction that has commercial substance, we have to recognize gains and losses immediately. Yeah. Whereby oppositely for the transaction that has no or lack commercial substance, then we have to defer the gain and loss. Yeah. Okay, for the loss situation, let's say the exchange result in the loss and it has commercial substance. So we have to recognize the loss. Yeah? Means the company should not value the asset more than their cash equivalent price. Yeah? If we don't recognize the loss, the asset will be overstated, yeah? And the information is not faithfully represented. Okay, we go through example. Can someone read the illustration? I'm becoming tired now. Someone volunteer the loss situation where it has the commercial substance. Raisha? Raisa, can you help me?
Yes, miss.
Okay, go ahead.
Loss situation has commercial substance. Information processing TA threads is used machine for a new model at Jarrod Business Solution NP. The exchange has commercial substance. The use machine has a book value of 8,000 euro. Original cost 12,000 less 12,000 euro less 4,000 euro. Accumulated depreciation and a fair value of 6,000 euro. The new model is for 16,000 euro. Here give information processing a trade-in allowance of 9,000 euro for the use machine. Information processing computes the cost of the new asset as follow.
Okay, stop there. Can someone explain the illustration, what it's all about? What's the transaction? Raisa smiles already. Can someone explain what's going on here? Ini taruh kulkas. What's the sequence of the transaction? What's happening in this illustration? We have two entities, Information Processing, PA, and Jared Business Solutions, right? Okay. And the information processing is trade-in. They are trades, they are used machine, yeah, for a new model. Following me? Right? And it says that the exchange has commercial substance. Yeah? Now let's look at the information that the used machine has a book value of 8,000 euro. Why the book value 8,000? Because original cost, yeah, 12,000, we minus the accumulated depreciation of 4,000. Yeah? And then it gives us the information of fair value of 6,000. Yeah? Now, the cost of new model, the price of new model is 16,000. Yeah? And Jared is the seller. It gives a trade-in allowance. What is trade-in allowance? Anyone? Trade-in allowance of 9,000 for the used machine. What is trade-in allowance? Like you exchange your laptop, yeah, your used laptop for the new laptop. Your used laptop nilainya mungkin 2 juta, 2 million, yeah? And the price of new laptop is 5 million. Yeah? And the seller gives you a trade-in allowance of 1 million. So what is a trade-in allowance? Continuing from the laptop example, the price of new laptop is 5 million. The seller gives a trade-in allowance of 1 million. So you just need to pay 4 million. So trade-in allowance is the value of your old asset. Ya, ya, karena kalian tukar, ya. You exchange your old asset for the new asset. Ya. So the seller will value your old asset and it would reduce the price of the new assets. Yeah? So that is a trade-in allowance or a discount or allowance gift. It will reduce the price of the new asset. Yeah. So this price of the new machine is 16,000. We deduct with the trade-in allowance of 9,000. So we only need to pay the 7,000 cash. Yeah? And it gives us the information of the fair value of the used machine. Yeah? So we add the cash payment plus the fair value of the used machine, then we get the cost of new machine. So this is actually the cost of our new machine, 13,000. Yeah, despite the price is 16,000, because this is the exchange transaction. Yeah, it's not the purchase transaction. Okay, how do we record? We record the new equipment is at 13,000 just now, the fair value plus the cash payment. And then we have to close the accumulated depreciation account of the old equipment. Remember, 4,000 accumulated depreciation. So we debit that. And then we credit the equipment. The old equipment is 12,000. Yeah. So let's say there is no amount of loss here. Yeah. So we compare 13 plus 4 is 17 and this side is 12. So actually there is a loss amount here, right? So how do we get the loss? It's fair value minus the book value of the used machine. Yeah. When the fair value is lower than the book value, it indicates a loss. Yeah. Book value is our own record. Yeah? The fair value is the market value of that asset. Yeah? Okay, so there is a loss on disposal of used machine of 2,000. Yeah. If you don't know to calculate this, actually when you do the journal entries, you can identify whether there is a loss or gain. Because when we see here it's 19,000. Here 13 plus 4 is 17. So actually it's not balanced yet, right? There is amount here of 2,000. So because it's on debit side is a loss. Okay, let's say the debit side is less than the credit side, means the credit needs to be recorded here. So it indicates a gain on disposal of the asset. Okay, just now we had the loss situation. Now let's see the gain situation, and it has a commercial substance. Yeah? Also, we have to immediately recognize a gain when it has the commercial substance. Yeah? Let's say for this example, the company exchanged a number of used trucks, yeah, for a new semi-truck. Yeah? So the used trucks has a combined book value of 42,000. Yeah, I don't need to explain anymore, but book value is a cost minus accumulated depreciation. Yeah, and it gives a fair market value of 49,000. Yeah, if you compare the book value and market value, is there a gain or loss? Book value is 42,000. The market value is 49,000. Is it a loss or a gain? By seeing the two numbers only. Anyone? Dara? Yes, Dara. Is it a loss or a gain?
Gain.
Gain, because the market value is more than the book value. Yeah? The rationale to understand is very simple. Ya? Artinya harga pasar itu lebih tinggi dari harga yang kita nilai sendiri. Ya? Jadi kalau lebih tinggi di pasar berarti kita akan untung, right? Okay. So there is no need to memorize. Yeah? Okay, in addition to the trucks, the company must pay 11,000 cash for the new truck. Yeah? So the cost of new truck will be the fair value plus the cash paid. Yeah? Fair value is 49,000, the cash paid is 11,000. Yeah? So the cost of new semi-truck is 60,000. So we would debit truck, and then what else? Must not show it. Yeah. Mira? Mira is working. Izzatul Ula? What do we debit again? Remember, we have to close anything related to the old asset. Apa aja yang berkaitan dengan aset lama, ada accumulated depreciation, right? That we have to close that account. And also the cost of the old asset, we need to close it as well. So how to close it? We need to debit the accumulated depreciation of the old trucks. Yeah? And then we credit the old trucks. Karena kan sudah kita tukar. Okay? So we have to credit it to eliminate that amount from our records. Okay? So, and then we get the gain on disposal of trucks. What else? Remember, there is a cash payment of 11,000. Yeah. So there is a gain on disposal of used truck of 7,000. Yeah. When you compare the fair value and the book value, and this gain has to be recognized immediately. Okay, let's say the transaction which has no commercial substance or lack of commercial substance. Yeah? So it would defer the gain of 7,000. Yeah, and we will reduce the value of the cost of the new asset. Yeah, if just now we record the cost of the new asset at 60,000. We have to minus the gain, yeah, because we defer. Kita tunda pencatatannya, yeah. So we minus the gain. So the new cost of the semi truck is 53,000, yeah, or book value of used truck. So here we don't use the fair value. We use the book value of the used truck plus the cash paid. So this is the cost of the new trucks. Yeah, can you see the difference? This is without the commercial substance. So we don't acknowledge the gain. Yeah, kita tidak akui keuntungan. Yeah, so trucks 53,000, and then debit accumulated depreciation, credit trucks use, and credit cash. Yeah, there is no any gain recorded. Okay, summary of gain and loss recognition on exchanges of non-monetary assets. We compute the total gain or loss on a transaction, and this amount is equal to the difference between fair value and the book value. Yeah, if the exchange has commercial substance, we recognize the whole gain or loss. Yeah, if it doesn't have any commercial substance, then we don't recognize any gain or loss. Yeah. Okay. We need to disclose the nature of the transaction, method of accounting for the assets exchange, and the gain or loss recognized on the exchange. Okay, we move to the next other issue. See, there's so many issues, right? That's why I need to force you to read. Okay. It's not a simple subject, okay? It has so many complex issues. Yeah? Now we talk about government grants. Yeah? It's very common, the companies are being given the government grants, yeah, in terms of asset, let's say, yeah? Bantuan dari pemerintah, yeah? Especially for UMKM, yeah? Small industries. The government is assisting by giving the asset. Yeah. So how do we record the government grant? Let's say the government of Aceh gives a machine to our company. Yeah. We debit the machine, but what do we credit? We don't pay, so we don't credit cash. So what do we credit? Any idea? Any idea? Okay, some opinions argue that we credit the equity, but it is rejected by some other opinions because the government are not the shareholders, so we cannot credit the equity. Yeah. So what do? The IFRS requires us to credit the revenue. Yeah. So that what is called as income approach. Yeah. So we regard that grant from the government as other revenue to our company. So debit the asset and credit the revenue. You get me? Okay, let's say in this example, lab equipment is being subsidized by the government. Okay, so 500,000 subsidy from the government to purchase lab equipment. The lab equipment cost is 2 million. Yeah, has a useful life of 5 years. Okay, so IFRS allows AG to record this grant in one of the two ways. First, the credit deferred grant revenue for the subsidy and amortize the deferred grant revenue over the 5-year period. Yeah. Or two, credit the lab equipment for the subsidy and depreciate this amount over the 5-year period. Yeah. So let's say if we record the deferred revenue of 500,000, yeah, we will amortize this amount over the 5 years period to income. So 100,000 is being amortized every year. Yeah. So at the end of financial statements of December 31st, 2019, we have equipment 2 million and less accumulated depreciation. And then non-current liabilities. This is a deferred grant revenue of 300,000. And then current liabilities deferred grant revenue 100,000. Because within next 1 year is assumed to be the current liability. The balance amount of for the next after 1 year, it will be regarded as non-current liability. Meanwhile, another 100,000. Remember, the grant is 500,000. So another 100,000 has been transferred to the income statement as a grant revenue for the year. Yeah. I hope you understand. Because it's over 5 years, so we apportion and amortize the amount of deferred grant revenue. Yeah? Okay, let's say if the company chooses to reduce the cost of the lab equipment, then the company will report the cost of equipment at 1,500,000. Yeah, because 500,000 we don't regard it as our cost. We don't pay it. It's a subsidy from the government. Yeah? Okay. What about the grant for past losses? Yeah, it's very normal that the government is assisting the airline company. Yeah, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Australia. Yeah? Whenever the national airline is facing the financial problem, it incurs the loss, and the government will take the role to assist the airline company, yeah, so that it doesn't go bankrupt and it can continue providing the service. Yeah. So let's say in this example, the government agrees to provide a cash grant of 1 million to the airline. Yeah. And because the grant is given to pay amounts owed to creditors for past losses, So the airline would record that as the income when it received. Yeah. So debit cash 1 million and credit grant revenue 1 million. So grant from the government is treated depending on what type of grant is being received. Is it in the form of the cash? Is it in the form of a subsidy for buying certain asset? Or is it in the form of asset itself? Yeah, memang aset yang dikasih. So we just credit the revenue. Yeah, but just now it's a subsidy for buying the asset. Yeah, so that's why we need to defer the grant revenue. Okay, see, there's so many topics. Okay, I won't continue with this because we have other topic. Okay, now we move to the cost subsequent to acquisition. What we have discussed so far, starting from the past week, is acquisition cost. Ya. Artinya cost ketika kita pertama sekali membeli atau membangun aset tersebut. Ya. Now we move to the second part of the cost, which is the subsequent cost after the acquisition. Okay, after we buy the building, yeah, 2 years after we buy the building, we want to replace certain part of the building, we want to repaint, or we need to renovate, yeah. So that all are costs subsequent to acquisition. You get me? Okay, it's no longer within the acquisition, but any other cost coming after sometimes following the acquisition. Yeah? Okay, the basic rule is we recognize any cost subsequent to acquisition if it can be measured reliably and if the company will get the future economic benefits from such subsequent costs. Yeah. Okay, what are the evidence of future economic benefit? Let's say the useful life becoming longer. Okay, let's say our equipment, we do the major repair, yeah, and then the useful life of that equipment is becoming longer. So that indicates there is a future economic benefit. So that cost of major repair will be capitalized, yeah, will be part of the cost of the asset. Other evidence is where the quantity of product produced is increasing, yeah. The quality also being improved, yeah. So that will indicate to us that there is an economic benefit. Okay, major types of expenditures, subsequent cost to the acquisition. Yeah. First is addition. Addition is the increase or extension of existing assets. Okay, let's say we have a building and we add another room to the building. So that is classified as additions. Ya, penambahan ya. Okay, we have another type of cost, which are improvement and replacements. Yeah. What's the difference between improvement and replacements? Improvement, let's say, currently we have a very basic floor, ya, hanya lantainya semen. And then we improve it by applying the granites, ya. Kita pakai granite. That one is called as improvement. It shows a betterment, ya. Ada peningkatan di dalam aset tersebut, ya. Replacement. What does it mean replacement? When we replace certain part of the asset. Let's say the roof is being broken, then we need to replace the roof. Then it should be part of the replacement category. Okay, can you see the difference between improvement and replacement? Okay. So improvement result in a better performance, in a better asset, yeah. But replacement, it could be for the similar one, yeah. And then rearrangement and reorganization, yeah. It means the movement of assets from one location to another, yeah. Let's say from one room, suddenly you want to move that equipment to another location, yeah. It involves a cost as well. And then repairs. Repairs are expenses that needs to incur to maintain the assets. So it can be used for a good condition for the operational activities. Okay, the accounting rules for addition, we capitalize the cost. Yeah, any addition, adding the room, yeah, adding the toilet to the building, yeah, that one is addition. So all those costs involving addition will be capitalized, yeah, to the cost of the asset, yeah. Meanwhile, improvement, also we capitalize the cost of improvement and replacement. But improvement and replacement is like you exchange the asset just now, yeah. So we need to remove the cost and accumulated depreciation of all asset, okay. And we recognize the gain or loss, yeah. Okay, rearrangement and reorganization are supposed to be expense. Why it's not capitalized? Because the basic rule is we recognize whatever the cost to bring the asset into the use, that will be part of the cost of the asset. Meanwhile, rearrangement and reorganization is actually doesn't affect. The asset has been in use already. Yeah, when you rearrange, it doesn't mean that it doesn't involve anymore the process of making that asset to be used. Yeah, memang aset itu sudah bisa digunakan. Yeah. Rearrangement is only in terms of layouting, yeah? So that one is not capitalized, okay? Repairs. For repairs, for ordinary repair expense, we expense it, yeah? Meanwhile, the major repairs will be capitalized. What does it mean ordinary repairs? It's repairs that you need very often, like monthly you incur the repair. But major repair is, the amount is very significant. And when we do the major repair, it will increase the capacity and productivity of that asset. That's why we capitalize the major repairs. Yeah. Let's say for a car, yeah, the ordinary repair could be service, yeah, the usual service that we do. But the major repair maybe we need to change the machine itself of the car, yeah. So that will be capitalized, yeah, the major repair. Any questions so far? Can you differentiate additions, replacement, improvement, and then we have repairs, we have rearrangement and reorganization. And the basic rule is whatever cost that is being incurred subsequent to the acquisition of that asset, that cost being incurred will increase the economic performance, then it will be capitalized. Yeah. Okay. Okay, now we talk about other issue, which is disposition of property, plant, and equipment. Yeah. Disposition or disposal, yeah, or disposal, membuang, yeah. We eliminate it from our company, yeah. So the company may dispose any of their assets voluntarily or dispose them by sale, exchange just now, involuntary conversion or abandonment. Yeah? So the reason for disposal may be various. Yeah? It's not only the sale and exchange, but it could be also involuntary conversion. What does it mean, involuntary conversion? It's like the government is forcing us to take over certain part of our land. Yeah, that one is involuntary conversion. Yeah, for the purpose of building the highways. Yeah, we need to give up our asset, let's say land. Yeah, and the government will be paying us for that. Yeah? So that one is involuntary conversion. Yeah? Abandonment for the asset that has been abandoned. Yeah? And sometimes it could be also due to natural disaster. Yeah? Our assets being demolished, yeah? Like building. Tsunami, remember the tsunami? The tsunami demolished, destroy many buildings. Yeah? So that one also involuntary conversion. Yeah? So we have to dispose that asset that has been destroyed due to the natural disaster. Yeah? And we need to recognize any proceeds, ya, ataupun ada nggak dapat sedikit bayaran dari aset yang rusak tadi. Ya. Mungkin there are parts of the asset that can still be sold, then we will recognize that amount, ya, when we dispose the asset. Okay, for example, sales of plant assets. The company records depreciation of blah, blah, blah at the rate of 1,200 a year. It sells the machine in the middle of the 10-year for 7,000. So we would record the depreciation expense because it's sold in the half year. We need to identify depreciation expense for the half year, which is 1,200 times 6/12, and then credit accumulated depreciation. And then to record the disposal. Okay, let's say they get certain amount of cash, yeah, from the sale, which is 7,000. So debit cash 7,000. To close that asset, we debit accumulated depreciation and we credit machinery, and we credit the gain on disposal of machinery. Yeah. Okay, so this is involuntary conversion. Like I mentioned just now, it could be due to the natural disasters like flooding, fire, even the theft, yeah, or condemnation award, let's say from the government. Yeah. So we treat the gain on or losses like any other disposal. Yeah. Let's say in this example, the company has to sell the plant located on company property because the government is building the highway there. So the company received 500,000 from the government, and it exceeds the book value of the land of 150,000. And the book value of the building is 100,000. Yeah. So the company will make the following entry. It receives the cash of 500,000. So debit cash 500,000, debit accumulated depreciation building, and we close off the building account by crediting it. And also credit, what else asset involved? Is the land, 150,000. And we get the gain in this transaction of 250,000. Okay. That wraps up our topic about power plant and equipment. I know you're very relieved. It's over now. Any question? It's a lot, right? I get tired myself. So please, I'm begging you to read the topics, okay? Don't just depend yourself on the class session. Yeah? You cannot get full from the class session because it's quite fast maybe, yeah. When you read slowly, step by step, then you get the idea. And I'll give you the exercises also assignment. Okay, by the way, I think we need additional one class, yeah, because we have another topic on depreciation, yeah, before we have final exam. Okay, because we started late as well, right? Because one of my classes has been used by Ibu Fifi. So yes, we'll see how I will again discuss in the group, inshallah. Yeah? Okay. Any question, comment? How many percent do you get? Let me check. Abi, how many percent do you get from today's lecture?
Around 60 until 70, Miss. Inshallah.
Oh, very good. 60 to 70. I thought you said 30%. Tara?
Maybe around 70.
70. Very good. 70%. Nufus?
I think 60, Miss.
Okay. Okay, now let's have a Kahoot quiz. So everyone understands 70%, right? I have a surprise for you. Let's have a Kahoot. It's not for today's topic, but for the previous topic. Okay? You don't have class, right? You have class? No, right?
No, Miss.
Okay, good. We will play Kahoot, but this is regarded as your quiz. Eh? Okay. Moment, please. Oh, I forgot to stop the recording.